From an unbelievable 700-pound snake to the biggest crocodile you'll ever see, get ready to see 15 biggest animals you won't believe actually exist. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Missing Files, and click the notification bell for the best daily videos. The 700-pound snake. Now, if you've been here before, then you've heard it once or twice, but go ahead and take this next story with a grain of salt, maybe even 2 grains. Okay, check this out. In Proctor, South Carolina, about 6 years ago, there was a claim of an enormous 700-pound snake that was recovered from a lake. And listen, the fact that this animal was said to be 700 pounds is one thing, but the added fact that they claim it was 98 feet long is something completely different. Can you imagine stumbling upon a 98-foot, 700-pound anything? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, there is major criticism online in regards to the authenticity of this story. For starters, there aren't any known species of snake that even grow to 98 feet long. Not in 2019 anyway, and I'm pretty sure they weren't growing that long back in 2013 either. Furthermore, the story is also told that this massive snake was actually killed by an excavation machine. I, for one, have my doubts because a 98-foot long snake must have been pretty smart to survive up to that length, and I'm just supposed to believe that it was killed by some insanely loud piece of equipment powered by an engine? Yeah, I don't know if I'm buying that. Nevertheless, these photos of the supposed event are pretty miraculous. But what do you think? Now, before we can get back to the rest of today's list, we've got to pause for just a moment because I've got one of the scariest images ever to show you. Check it out. Don't know exactly where in the world we are, but I do know that this has got to be the largest snake ever seen on camera. If it's real, what in the world kind of snake breed is that? And how big do you think it actually is? I've heard of snakes being 20, sometimes even 30 feet long, but this big boy looks like it's at least 100 feet long, and it probably weighs tons. But is it real? Let us know what you feel down below in the comments, and be sure to use the hashtag #MissingTopic. Mega Mako. All right, folks, up next, we've got a story that comes from back in summer of 2013. Over off the coast of California, a fisherman named Jason Johnson captured this huge 12-foot Mako shark. And let me tell you, it was quite the controversial catch indeed. You see, after wrestling with this huge marine animal for hours and hours, he finally was able to reel it in. But the thing is, after he brought the shark on board, he didn't throw it back into the water, citing outrage from thousands of concerned citizens online. The 1,300-pound sea beast is an amazing sight to behold nonetheless. So what do you think? Should Jason have tossed the shark back into open waters? If you say yes, why do you feel that way? The Malaysian super snake, where we have a very, very, very large snake. As a matter of fact, many experts suggest that this could in fact be the largest snake ever caught. The snake was captured on a construction site in Malaysia, and it came in measuring at a whopping 26 feet and weighed over 550 pounds. Animal experts have stated that this is one super snake that could have easily swallowed an adult human body, which is something really freaky to consider. And by freaky, I mean scary as heck. Unfortunately for this supersized reptile, she didn't survive much longer after the picture was taken. It is believed the cause of her demise was natural. The biggest Opa ever caught. Keeping things moving right along here today, check out this next story. So there's a rumor going around on the internet that a very, very, very large animal was caught from the water, and while the fishermen were deciding whether or not to throw the large fish back in the water, it died, angering scientists who wanted to study it all around the world. This thing right here, what's only known as a rare giant Opa. Now, the reports are that the fish weighed close to 1.2 tons, which for those of you keeping count at home is absolutely monstrous. Anyway, after these fishermen in Russia allowed the massive fish to die, they still weren't sure what to do with its body. You can't just throw a 2,000+ pound dead fish back in the water, right? So they did what was considered to be the next best thing. They fed it to the bears. At least that's what's been rumored to be the outcome. So I know we have viewers from all over the world. Has anyone who lives or visited Russia ever heard this story? Weird, ain't it? The 4-foot rat. We'll keep this information train moving right along. Up next, we've got possibly one of the most hideous and unnerving large creatures ever. Check out this photo. This is supposedly a 4-pound rat. Yes, 4 feet long, that was found out in London near a children's playground, of all places. Animal experts claim that this could be a cane rat, which they believe could have been breeding beneath the streets down in London's sewers. Tony Smith, the gas engineer who spotted and captured the large rodent, stated that the rat weighed almost 25 pounds. That's more than some dogs. Can you imagine seeing a rat that was actually bigger than your dog? How is that not the most disgusting thing you've ever heard? Blue Babe. So all the way back in 1979, just north of Fairbanks in Alaska, this mummified remains of a male steppe bison was discovered. The name Blue Babe was assigned as the finder named it after a mythological blue ox. Now, the special thing about this discovery was that the animal was estimated to be over 36,000 years old. You want to hear something even crazier? One of the scientists actually removed some of the meat from the animal's neck, put it in stew, and ate it. Talk about the opposite of fast food. The largest flying bird. As we continue to round out today's list, up next we have what animals have described only as the largest flying bird in the world. It's called the Andes condor, and it belongs to the vulture family. Just look at how massive this thing is. Found in the Andes Mountains and on different Pacific coasts near South Africa, this large beast is a scary sight, especially when it's up close and personal. There are in fact no larger birds out there with the ability to fly, as they possess a wingspan of up to about 10.5 feet and can weigh almost 40 pounds. These are scavenging animals and prefer larger meals to feast on. One really cool fact is that they can have pretty long lifespans, with reports stating that they've survived up to 75 years when held in captivity. Who knows how long they can survive out in the wild? Once considered to be an extremely endangered species, they've recently been making a comeback as conservation efforts have been implemented, allowing this huge, ugly, flying animal a chance at ultimate survival. Lolong. Up next, we've got another animal that's made countless tops, the crocodile. We've talked a few times before about humongous killer croc skeletons and fossils that have popped up over the years, but the largest living crocodile ever recorded took place over in the Philippines. And yes, he too had a name. Lolong, the world's largest crocodile ever measured, died in captivity several years ago, but the sheer size of this massive animal will not soon be forgotten. This 20-foot, 3-inch beast weighed more than 2,300 pounds and was suspected for terrorizing the small village of which he was captured in. Giant Chinese salamander. When most people think about salamanders, they assume that we're talking about the small amphibians that grow to about 6 inches long that you can often find in rivers and streams. But just like the giant African land snails and the Japanese spider crabs, these animals have a huge cousin that definitely deserves some recognition. In this case, the big cousin is the giant Chinese salamander, and these hefty fellas can grow to exceed 4 feet in length. This highly endangered species is the world's largest living amphibian, and hopefully through careful planning and attention to detail, it'll be able to make a full recovery in our world's fragile ecosystem. Goliath bird eater, what's best described simply as the largest spider on the planet. This is the Goliath bird eater, and it is essentially the king of all spiders. These things can weigh over 7 ounces, and with its legs stretched all the way out, they could grow to about 12 inches long. Now, the name is pretty sick, bird eater. And it isn't because birds are the primary part of this arachnid's diet. They actually prefer to feast on insects, but they will snatch the occasional frog, mouse, and even, yes, birds, if they get hungry enough. Once the creature is snagged into the Goliath's super sharp and super long fangs, they're pumped with neurotoxins and then dragged back into the spider's lair. The Indonesian woman named Ming Ku has invested nearly $50,000 on collecting and caring for all sorts of hairy, eight-legged creatures, with more than 1,500 of them living alongside of her in her house. Giant African land snail. Up next, we've got another typically small creature that tends to give people the creeps even when they're not very big, but when they're supersized, then they just take that creepiness level up a notch. We're talking about the giant African land snail, a snail that could potentially endure a lifespan of over 10 years. These slimy slitherers can grow to be almost 12 inches in length, and of course, they wear the classic snail shell that usually has either 7 or 9 spirals. Snails of this caliber will feast on a variety of different plants, some say up to and even over 150 different species. One more thing about this humongous slimy sucker, they're illegal to own as pets in the United States. As one of the more invasive species of creatures anywhere in the world, they could do irreversible damage to crops all across the country. Japanese spider crab. Our next example of extremely large animals that you might think are fake is the infamous Japanese spider crab. These huge crabs with super long legs can grow to about 13 feet around, which is pretty ridiculous when you think about the fact that it's just a crab. Though I do have to say, I'm sure all-you-can-eat crab leg night featuring these fellas is probably a hit. Anyway, the Japanese spider crab is unique for several reasons, including the fact that it can grow to be more than 100 years old. They're also a bit of a clumsy species, either that or they're simply easy to catch, as a study proved that more than 75% of these crabs that were captured or under surveillance were missing at least one limb. Really makes you think twice about that crab leg night, doesn't it? Darius. We've hit you with a couple creepy entries so far, so we'll soften it up a bit for this next story. Most bunny rabbits are fairly small, topping out at a little over a foot long. Because of how docile they are, people often keep them as pets, a nice alternative to a dog or a cat. But what happens when you own a pet rabbit that's actually as large as some good-sized dogs? Well, you name it Darius and you win a bunch of awards. If your name is Annette Edwards, this 66-year-old is not only the record holder in the UK as the country's oldest glamour model, but her pet rabbit Darius is recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest rabbit alive. Standing at a massive, for a rabbit, 4 feet 4 inches tall, Darius has done countless interviews and broken countless records on his way to being the most decorated pet rabbit in the history of, well, pet rabbits. Stewie. We were able to meet the world's largest bunny rabbit just a bit ago, and up next we've got one more entry for the cuteness contest as we introduce Stewie, the world's longest cat. Now, of course, this isn't the world's largest predator cat, as we may have some news on that in just a couple of minutes, but this big fella here won first place in the Guinness World Records 2010 edition, and he and his owner, Robin Hendrickson and Eric Bransonen, live in the United States. This cat measures just a tad bit shorter than the 4-foot bunny from a bit ago, but still comes in at a very impressive 4 feet 0.04 inches long. Unfortunately, Stewie passed away in 2013, and while cats this size are typically a lot less agile than ones that are far smaller, one good thing about owning a mega-sized cat, at least according to Stewie's owners, is that they never really have a hard time finding their pet. Big Jake. 2010 must have been the year of the giant animal, because our next entrant also was crowned during that same year. Next up, you get to meet Big Jake, the world's tallest horse ever measured. This Belgian gelding found extraordinary fame after being crowned with that title, and from hoof to mane, he measured a whopping 6 feet 9 inches tall. Now, for the comparison's sake, your average sized horse is only about 5 feet tall. Crowned on January 19, 2010, the new new trophy pumped life into the horse's hometown of Poinet, Wisconsin. Jerry Gilbert, the manager at the farm where Big Jake resides, couldn't believe how much attention his steed was receiving. And it wasn't as if Jake was bred for success, as both of his parents were just average-sized horses. But as a foal, Big Jake weighed almost 250 pounds, which is fairly large for that type of animal. This huge fella eats 2 full buckets of grain and a bale of hay per day, which you all should have assumed big guys like this usually do have pretty big appetites. Huge Liger. So a few minutes ago we spoke about the world's largest house cat, that big fella Stewie, whose owner claims their cat is just over 4 feet long. Even that pales in comparison to Hercules, an adult male liger that currently lives on the Myrtle Beach Safari in South Carolina. To Hercules, Stewie is just a snack, as this big fella stands taller than 4 feet from paw to ear, but stretches more than 10 feet long from nose to tail. A liger, for those who aren't aware, is a lion and tigress hybrid, and just like each one of their predecessors, this animal is an absolute carnivore. Hercules himself consumes more than 30 pounds of meat per day, along with several liters of water. Putting this humongous creature next to a human almost makes the photo look fabricated, but we guarantee you that this animal would dwarf almost any living thing. One last thing. Ligers like this one are made with male lions that are crossbred with female tigers, in which case the offspring are typically larger than both of its parents. The same cannot be said about tigons, however, which are the crossbreed of a male tiger with a lioness. When that combination happens, the offspring are generally much smaller than each parent. Giant spider. Okay, who loves spiders? Everybody, right? Oh, wait, no. Most people hate spiders? Well, you may want to cover your eyes. Check out this next clip taken by a tourist traveling through an unknown city. As the car goes beneath a bridge, you'll see something so startling, you may want to skip to the next number. This giant, huge, absolutely ugly, mega-sized spider is crawling along one of the legs of this bridge. Did you see that? If you came across that in the real world, what would you do? Because I'm pretty sure I'd pass out as soon as that huge, ugly thing came into view. Biggest goldfish ever. So there's no direct evidence outside of this image that we recently just uncovered that this last animal is real. But I mean, my goodness, just look at the size of this freaking goldfish. What in the world? How did this thing get so big? I mean, a few weeks ago, we did a story about goldfish that were meeting and mating in underwater sewers over in London, and officials said that the environment was just right down there for the fish to grow to abnormal sizes. But I mean, how in the world is a goldfish this large even possible?